Hi, I'm John, and I vote because voting matters. Ah, today is a day that I wanted to talk about gerrymandering. Shout out to my graphics department, Bob. Good work. Um, Gerrymandering is an incredibly confusing subject, and it has an awesome name to go along with it. I wanted to try and create a three-part series, and who knows if I'm going to have that capability, uh, but I'm going to try. So, this three-part series, part one at least, is going to talk about gerrymandering, um, term limits, and what those two things mean to how you feel about your government. Um, yeah, it makes you feel pretty bad. So we will start with gerrymandering today. Gerrymandering is what is it? We're gonna have like five parts here. What is gerrymandering supposed to be? What is it actually? And why would a person want to have gerrymandering? And why does it suck? But we can't just leave it there. So we're going to say how we can fix it. Uh, in our analogies, we'll be using two different political parties. One will be the Smurfs, and one will be the Rubber Duckies. Just because we don't want to push any buttons, we're just trying to get information right now. All right. So, what is it supposed to be? Well, gerrymandering, the real term of what it's supposed to be is redistricting. The definition of redistricting is to divide or organize an area into a political or school district. The reason we need it is because we are not all politicians. We don't want to spend all day focusing on like should we pass this particular amendment to this particular bill at this particular time for this particular city. We need to go to work, we need to pick up our kids, we need to watch sports, we need to do any random thing that you want to do in a day. We don't need to be spending our time just focusing on the daily running of the government. It's a huge job, and there should be people there doing it for us. Um, yeah, we don't wanna be studying, like, what are the individual reasons why or why not somebody should get healthcare, but we should all agree that everybody deserves to have healthcare. You shouldn't die because you don't have a big enough bank account, but that's getting into politics. Let's not go there right now. So, what is gerrymandering? Well, it's extraordinarily complicated, and it's also extraordinarily simple. Um, the name of it came from a guy whose last name was Gary. Yeah, it's spelled Gerry. Um, but it's pronounced Gary, but they ended up making it into Jerry. And hey, Bob, do you have that graphic? Oh, oh, I didn't see you back there. Thanks. Uh, thanks, Bob. So this is the redistricting map that this guy Gary made, and this was a news article that somebody wrote saying that he turned it into a gerrymander, because I guess back then salamanders looked different than they do today. Um, yeah, so that he took his state and broke it up into small pieces that didn't really go together. So it looked kind of crazy, and he was using it for political power. And that's what gerrymandering is. When you jack up an area to gain power in spite of the voters' will. Now, this may be the wrong way to think about gerrymandering because sometimes redistricting can look funny. So just because it looks funny doesn't mean it's bad. I'll get to why it would be bad in a second here. All right. So the reason, I mean, why it's not super great is because it makes you feel like you're not represented. Um, because you aren't. But there's worse things than that. It allocates party power in spite of what the public wants, ensuring that your party maintains power indefinitely. And it uses the census as a weapon. The census is what we use to determine how to redistrict. So whenever you fill that out, hey, by the way, fill that out. It's really important we fill out the census because we use that to determine who we should vote for, and make sure that we're represented by people who share our values. So fill that out whenever you can, or as soon as possible, because it's about to end this year. Um, so what you do is once those census things come in, then demographic information gets broken down, and people use that information to see uh, how to break up a district. If you want to do it so that, um, like a particular subdivision might all share the same point of view, so you might want to have them together, um, because you'd want somebody representing somebody to know, like, this particular subdivision has the same group of issues, and if you did something to half of that subdivision and not to the other half of that subdivision, who knows? I mean, it depends on the type of way you're doing it. If you want to look into why or how you break up a specific district, I would recommend doing more research. Oh, by the way, these graphics that I got are actually from Britannica.com. They have an article on gerrymandering. If you want to look into that, it's in the link in the description. All right, so why would people want to gerrymander? Well, um, it's because you can accomplish your goals without anybody interfering in them. Uh, you get to do what you want, even if the people don't want you to do it. So your agenda remains in power for 10 plus years. This gerrymandering, redistricting occurs every 10 years. So if you were able to change the district to your advantage, you get that power for the next 10 years until the next census happens. Uh, and while you're in power, you can rewrite the rules so that you can retain power even longer afterwards. You get everything you want. So that's an important thing to feel like you have. Now, for instance, in the rubber ducky party, everybody wants water. They want water everywhere because rubber duckies float. They don't do much on land. They don't need food. So their social programs aren't going to provide food for their rubber duckies. It's a waste of money to them. They prefer silence, or in the times when they need communication, they only want to be communicating in squeaks. If you don't communicate in squeaks, they don't really accept you as part of their community. Now, Smurfs, on the other hand, they want everybody to live in mushrooms. They want their structural designs to be based on the Smurf skinny structure. Uh, you know, Rubber duckies don't really fit through those door holes made for Smurfs. They want to close all the waterways and drain them so they can do more berry farming. Now, they also want to allocate money to the mirrors for Vanity Smurf. And, rubber duckies aren't really a big fan of that. So you can see how these two different political parties could have problems, but they could also work together if they had a properly districted community. You could have a river that runs through the Smurf area. The rubber duckies could get their way, and the Smurfs could have bridges to their berries, so you could work together. Now, that's that's the benefit of having a well redistricted area is people work together and they come up with better ideas. Who knows? Maybe that bridge over the water, maybe it's a large growable bridge, so you can actually grow the berries on the bridges. So these are things that you can do if you have a district that is fairly allocated. People will have to compromise to make sure that everybody gets their way. And when you're testing people's opinions and designs, you can actually come up with better solutions that help everybody and not just one particular party. Now you know why somebody would want it. But why does it suck? Well, it sucks for the people that are being represented because they aren't being represented. Their viewpoints aren't being taken into account. Um, I want to do a video on this some other time, but I don't know. This is definitely not the time to do it. But the free market has a lot of positive aspects, but when it's unrestrained, it falls apart because if you don't have any guardrails in place, free market becomes monopoly. So without competition of the opposing party, let me show you what gerrymandering is because that's going to make this make a lot more sense. So here's another one of my spectacular graphics. So if you look here, we have 50 different voters, and 60% of them are the gray, and 40% are the orange. Now, this would be the census, and whatever this is your party. So the census tells you this information. I don't think it tells you your party. You can do it based on demographics and stuff on what people usually vote on. So anyway, this is your demographics, and if you want to make a fair electorate, there's a few ways you can do it. You can break it down so that people are kind of equally um, represented. So like maybe there's a 50-50 district that could flip one way or the other. And then there's the way where you could just say, like, this is the extreme. I think this is a bad design because then you have only the extreme orange and two different representatives, and only the extreme gray and the others. And that would cause gridlock. I mean, that's what we have right now is we have two extreme points of view, and there's no reason to compromise because their constituents want what they want, and they will never flip to something that would help somebody else because it doesn't matter to them. There's nobody in their district that would need the thing that you're compromising on. This one's cool because, like, this one and this one, they're going to have tight votes. They're going to have to appeal to everybody. So this would make a better district because it would help bring people together. They have to compromise to get what they want. Now, here's the things that are not fair. This is gerrymandering. This is essentially redistricting. This is a little bit not a great idea, but these are just regular redistricting. These are intent on distorting the electorate. So in this one here, you have 40% of the votes are going to be orange, but 100% of the districts are going to be gray. Because this is always going to vote for a gray person. This is always going to vote for a gray person. This is always going to vote for a gray person. Over here, you have the opposite. So 60% of the electorate voted for gray, but 3 of the 5 districts are orange. So even though the gray people outnumber the orange people have all of the power. And that's kind of what's going on right now. So we have a small representation having the overwhelming a small group of people having the majority of the representation. So that's kind of what gerrymandering is. Thanks again, Bob, for that art. That's great. So what I was saying with the free market is you end up having, even here, you end up having people. So for instance, here you have Gray. Gray is going to win this election every time. Now, do you think Gray tries to appeal to orange voters? No. Why would you? You're going to get voted out by these people. Don't even matter anymore, according to the representatives that are getting elected. They won't even look at them. And the reason for that is you're going to have people in your own party trying to out extreme you. So let's say that the Gray is the rubber duckies, and they really, really want to have the national language be squeak. Now, the Smurfs don't speak squeak, so they don't even know what that would mean. Now, they represent 40% of the population. That's a substantial portion of the population. But if the rubber duckies own 60% and they're going to get all 5 of these districts, they're only going to be debating how far they're going to go to make squeak the national language. Are they going to just say that it's the national language and you can talk a different language if you want to? Or are you going to be the other guy that's going to say, we will not stop until every single constituent in our community speaks squeak? And if you don't, we're going to deport you to some other district. They're not even going to be talking about the Smurfs issues. Like, who cares if we get mushroom houses? We don't need mushroom houses. So these Smurfs are going to feel very disenfranchised. They're going to feel like nobody cares about them because they don't. They're not even debating the issues because they're not even a voting constituent anymore. So that's the problem with gerrymandering, is you just don't matter anymore because the debate isn't about you. It's about who can be the more extreme candidate. Now, the crazy part is that this is not good for the minority, like instantaneously. But as it gets crazier and crazier, and as people push and push further to their area, um, the party that is in power loses control of their message. They're no longer, their values no longer matter. And you get extremists who are just pushing the boundaries of how extreme you can be. And when that happens, you get people running for office that feel very passionate about something and they're enraged by their particular news sources. Let's quote that because it's not really news. And when they'll pose these positions without having any idea of how to implement it, without having any idea of how it'll affect anybody else. So they're inexperienced. They have no compassion for anybody else, and then they start pushing forward these ideas, and the electorate loses faith in government completely. And then it becomes my biggest pet peeve. Both sides suck. Both sides are evil. Both sides are the same. And when it becomes just a 50-50 of the worst possible things, then the most extreme party wins because nobody even looks at the facts. Nobody looks at the actual policy that either side has. So, in the end, government ends up looking like the failure and people loathe it. Now that's kind of where we are right now. I think that there's a way to fix it. It's not easy. Because the minority doesn't have power, as you can see. They just take it away. So the people who want to balance the system can't. And their messages, because they don't have as much screen time, because the majority usually has the power, and therefore they can say, hey, we want to do this, this, and this. So the news is like, well, we want to know what's going to happen next. So they give more time to the people in the majority. Now, it's really not easy until it is. Both sides hate unfairness. If you want to do it both sides, nobody likes to be cheated. Nobody likes it when other people are cheated. So you can work together to get these things out, and it doesn't have to be a party line thing. Um, and one of the things we live in Michigan, and we actually passed something from a group called Voters Not Politicians. It ended up being called Proposal 2. Um, and it's going to try and get rid of all of the problems with our current gerrymandering redistricting process. Um, and and it's crazy because it passed 61% to 39%. That's a 22% difference. That is not a party line vote. People from both parties voted to get rid of gerrymandering because it is cheating. So, what does that mean? So in Michigan, uh, they'll have a group of people, and you can actually sign up for this. The deadline's still open. I have a link in the description if you want to get involved in this because I mean, it's super important. You can actually get paid for a year to go to all the districts in the state or district to be created. Now, they have some restrictions too. You can't be part of a party. You can't have worked with a party in the last 6 years. You couldn't have been on a ballot for a party. You can't be a lobbyist, and you can't be a family member of somebody who's doing political work. So it should help reduce it to just, random people who actually work hard every day, take their kids to school, and want to make the world a better place. Now, the things that are required of these people is they have to go hold public hearings and they have to take public feedback. So it should be representative of the people they're talking to. The first new maps are going to be in 2021, and it's going to be based on this census. Um, and it's really important that we work hard to get this done. If you live in a state that doesn't, so this is an unaffiliated group of people that are going to try and work to make sure that everybody gets a fair chance. Voters Not Politicians is a pretty great group, and they'll make a huge difference as long as this stays in place. Like I said, if you want to get involved in them, go ahead and check it out. And I'm sure that they have information if you wanted to contact them. I'm guessing that they'd give you information if you live in a different state and wanted to figure that out, or your state. Well, that's all I have today. Uh, and it is uplifting that you can get these things done in a bipartisan way. Hopefully, this person, Rubber Duckies, can work this out too. Like I said, nobody likes unfairness. And as I said before, I vote because voting matters. And we have an election in November. So get out there and make a difference. Have a good one.